Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to continue talking about my current project of coding the combat system for a viewer's game. More specifically, I would like to look at the coding of ammunition. There are some weapons that are supposed to have or require and use up ammunition. And thus far, we don't have any code that makes that happen. So pistols and machine guns, similar weapons, you can just fire them as much as you want, and they never sort of run out. But of course, that was never the intention. And now I've gotten up to coding ammunition. But I immediately saw a problem with the data that I had set up. And that is that if we're going to have a weapon that uses ammunition, we should let the player know how much ammunition they have left. In other words, when we display on the screen, you've got a pistol, for example, it shouldn't just say pistol, it should say pistol, 4 shots left, something like that. Shotgun, 2 shots left, or whatever it may be. And that way the player, if they can't shoot, they'll know why, and also they'll be able to ration their shots and work out whether they're going to be able to defeat a group of enemies. They might say, well, this this gun is very good against them, but I only have a few shots left, and so they can make more sort of accurate decisions about whether a particular fight is winnable, or how many, what exact resources am I going to use this grenade or not, and so on. But we have the first, or the array that has the sort of general information about each weapon is WEA_OVR, which stands for Weapon Overview. And the array that has stuff about particular attacks, WEA_ATT, is the one that has what ammunition a particular attack uses. In other words, we can't look at weapon 4, which is a shovel. There's nothing here that tells us whether it uses ammunition. In order to see whether it uses ammunition, we would have to look at these 2 entries here. And so that's a little bit inefficient, because there aren't always 2 entries. In this particular case there are, because there are 2 attacks, but in other ones, a minority of ones, there's only 1 attack, and hypothetically we might have other weapons that we want to put in there that have more than 2 attacks. So it's not quick to code look up whether this weapon uses ammunition. Also, there's 2 different values that involve using ammunition. When we look in WEA_ATTZ3, both 2 and 3 indicate the use of ammunition. The difference being that 2, a single attack uses up 1 unit of ammunition, and in 3, a single attack uses up between 1 and 6 units of ammunition, and does multiplies the damage correspondingly as well if it hits. So what we want, in short, is an entry in WEA_OVR that tells us whether or not this weapon uses ammunition. Not necessarily whether it uses 1 or 1 to 6, but just a simple 0 or 1. Does it use ammunition or does it not? A simple binary choice. Now, I could, of course, have just put that in by looking. I could have just gone through this, worked out the ones that use ammunition, and put it in. But that seemed a little bit inelegant. That requires, if somebody wants to add more weapons, they have to do that, the same thing, and they might make a mistake, and the information is there, it's in here. So it should be possible, I thought, to have some code that would automatically write into this new slot. And I decided to use slot 4 for the simple reason that we used slot 0, 1, 2, or 3. So unless there's a specific reason not to, you would, of course, just use the next slot. So what I've done is written some code, which is in a new passage, ammunition, and that will go through the details of WEA underscore ATT and for each weapon, and it will determine whether it uses ammunition in either of its attacks or both of its attacks, and if so, it will write a 1 into this this slot, and I could have put a 0 in the slot otherwise, but I decided to just leave it as undefined for now because it's not it's only relevant whether it is 1 or something else, and so undefined works just as well as writing in a 0. So let's have a look at how this works. So initialize used to include choose character. It now includes ammunition, and then ammunition includes choose character. In other words, we've created this new passage called ammunition, and it's in the middle here. And when you're playing the game, you won't notice any difference because this is a sort of behind the scenes bit of code. It doesn't display anything. I did have messages for testing just to make sure that it got the right results. And once I determined that it did get the right results, I got rid of those. And it'll just sort of do this right into the relevant slot and continue the game, and you won't notice any difference. It presumably makes the game take a sort of fraction of a second more to load, but I didn't notice anything in terms of the time. So how does it work? Well, we have a for loop. The for loop goes from 0 to WEA underscore OVR dot length -1. Usually I like to start from slot 1, because that seems more instinctive to me, but in this particular case, where WEA underscore OVR starts from 0 because we have an extra, mainly because I did start it from 1 and then we wanted an extra entry for nothing, for a punch. So I put that in slot 0. And this will go through every entry in WEA underscore OVR, which I think is 0 to 14. Let's have a look. I did determine that it goes through the right way. Yeah, it's 0 to 14. It does go through the right range of numbers. But anyway, for each value of Z, we have another for loop. It goes from 1 to WEA underscore OVR Z2. That is the number of attacks that particular weapon has. For each of those, for each of the combinations of values of Y and Z, we set X equal to WEA underscore OVR Z0, and that is just the name of the weapon. So it's machine gun, smoke grenade, science gun, etc., plus a space, plus the value of Y. So something like pistol 1 and pistol 2. This is code that we've seen before, because this is the way that we get text that is the same as the values that we're using in WEA underscore ATT. So we're using broom 1 and broom 2 for the 2 attacks that a broom has, shovel 1 and shovel 2, shotgun 1 and shotgun 2, flamethrower 1, there is no flamethrower 2, and so on. So we've seen this code before. Then we look at WEA underscore ATT X, which is that text, so pistol 1 or 2, 3. And we say, is that equal to 2 or 3? Why 2 or 3? Because 2 or 3 are the 2 values that are using up ammunition. So the other values are, it's just, you can use it indefinitely. That's for things that you strike with, like a machete. Then 1 is single-use weapons, so a grenade once you use the grenade, you don't have a grenade anymore. If we had a spear, throwing the spear would be a similar attack like that. And then we have 2 and 3, which is using up 1 unit of ammunition or using up 1 to 6 units of ammunition. If it has one of those values, then we set WEA underscore OVR Z4 to 1. And then we just close off the for loops. Now what I could do is set WEA underscore OVR Z4 to 0 up here. And that will mean that every entry of this form, WEA underscore OVR, anything from 0 to 14, 4, will always be 0 or 1. And that's what I'll do if it becomes necessary. But at the moment, it's either 1 or undefined. And that's fine. I can still say if WEA underscore OVR Z4 is equal to 1, then print how much ammunition this particular weapon has left, which we're going to need separate arrays for and stuff, which will be coming up in future videos. But anyway, at the end of this, it will go through all of the weapons, and the ones that have at least one attack that uses ammunition. Doesn't have to be both, because the pistol, you can pistol whip, which is just a club type of attack, or you can shoot with it. So it has one ammunition attack and one non-ammunition attack. If one or both of the attacks are of that type, it will flag that, and that means that we have a quick, simple way of looking at whether, for example, the weapon in the player's favoured hand or their offhand is an ammunition type weapon. And that is useful because if it is, well, we want to print how many shots it has left. And also, of course, if that number is 0, we want to forbid attacks that require ammunition. We don't want to have a button on the passage where the player character, this one here, the passage where the player character has all of their choices for their actions. Well, we don't want to have the option to shoot when you're out of ammunition. We want that button to disappear once you've used your last shot. But of course, if it's a club type weapon, well, we don't need to do that code. And so to see whether we need to use that code, we will consult this slot of the array. So I will leave it there. That doesn't make any visible difference in the game. It's all behind the scenes, but it is necessary for things that are going to be visible. Things like displaying how many shots are left and making ammunition work as it should, which is what I'll probably be doing in the videos immediately to come. But I'll leave it there for now. I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.